All right, this is Emily Costa. Welcome to the next Words of Wisdom. Today we're going to talk about mastering the wrong things, and we'll talk about blue eyeshadow weebs and the how and why of self-prolongance. Starting small and learning to monopolize. You've heard the saying, in order to do anything right, you have to do it yourself in order to get anything done correctly. And to some extent, that's true. You have to focus on the 3-foot world, right? The world right near you, and doing that correctly. There are problems with both sides of the saying, though. So both sides of delegating too early and also doing everything yourself. The problem with delegating too early is definitely very significant, especially in the business world. And that's why a lot of businesses fail, because on some level, you're never going to get the right results unless you're doing them yourself. So how do you get things done? You want to do things with your life that pass the test of time. I always say experimentation is really amazing, but you have to focus on doing things that have held up the test of time. So when people experiment, they test the rules, they test things that have been like the standards of all time. Expect really low rates of success. It's like the things that are happening in our political circles where people are questioning, I'm going to say it, people are questioning gender norms, and people are questioning a lot of different things of like how human beings have always existed. And at some level, like that is key to moving forward and progressing in society. But at the same time, understand that 99% of your experimentation is not going to lead to positive results, right? It might be fatal. It might just waste a ton of time. And then occasionally you might make a breakthrough. So that's important to understand. So do things that stand up to the test of time, if at all possible, or make very calculated experiments, and only do them for so long. I always say that the maximum amount of time that you should stick with an experiment is probably about 3 months. That would probably be the preferable time. And then move on if you don't see results at that point. Because at some point, like, results show up, and sometimes it can take a little while, so you have to have a little bit of patience. So delegating too early is important. So also the other thing that people should focus on is the funeral test. People that have mastered things in life, they have a lot of people showing up at their funerals. Human beings have mastered a lot of different things. We've mastered transportation, housing, lots of different things. And the popular people who have a lot of people show up to their funerals are masters. And so it's important to master, not only have mastery, but have mastery in the right thing. So the first rule of mastery is to master the right thing. The second rule is to be very clear in understanding the problem. The best way to solve a problem is to ask, why is it the way it is now? Why has this problem not been solved? Why is this a problem? So ask why in a lot of different ways, as many ways as possible. Health, right? As an example, learn your problem. Learn, why is my weight blah, blah, blah? Why do I have this little muscle mass? Why is my skin breaking out in this one way? Why do I have psoriasis? Ask those questions. Michael Jackson focused on plastic surgery versus his health. He focused on the wrong problem, right? He was like, okay, I have these health issues. Let me focus on just finding something to create a facade of health versus actually focusing with inward problems. Why are our brains tempted to give people second chances? The second time, you're the fool. The first time, you're not the fool. The second time, you're the fool. So that's another thing with experimentation, is the first time you make a mistake, that's on somebody else. But the second time, I say that's when you're the fool. In the Bible, they talk about, basically there's a topic that says, like in relationships, if you're stumbling, let's say out of lust, and you're in a committed relationship and you see a pretty girl on the street, just noticing that she's pretty and looking at her, like, that's not a problem. But it's when you like turn back around, like Lot's wife did in Sodom and Gomorrah, that second thing that is the sin. Because the first thing is just like, well, you can't control that, right? A commercial comes on, something comes on, you pass by something, like you can't eliminate everything in your surroundings. But it's the second thing that's the problem. So that's another example of second chances and the second problem. So learn your problem. You have to be flexible in means of experimentation. As soon as it shows that it doesn't work, move on, because the most valuable asset we have in life is time. If Thomas Edison needed 1,000 experiments to create the light bulb, so do you. Do let the commitment consistency. Do not let the commitment consistency get you. There is no one thing that is proven successful when it comes to health, wealth, love, and happiness. I talk about how these topics are supposed to get you the 4 pillars of the good life: health, wealth, love, and happiness. And even though that they definitely are the science behind these things, and a lot of it has to do with cognitive biases and the way that our brains work and rewiring the mechanisms of our brains to be men and women on the rise instead of in a stagnant position, just passing time. There is not just one way. If I were to talk about this is how you become a millionaire, there's not just one way. There's probably a few very popular ways that will give you the best odds. If you look at slot machine mentality, slot machine probability, right? You want to pick the slot machine that's going to give you the best odds. But there isn't just one way. And so when it comes to finance, I'm going to give that as an example because that's the most numerical of the 4 pillars. There isn't one way, but you have to pick a strategy and just stick with it. That's how you find success. And then pick the right thing with the highest odds. Diversification is important. Have people in each pillar of the good life that are experts, that are masters, especially because you might only get a fraction of their success in your lifetime. So have a pastor as a spiritual mentor, have a personal trainer, have a boyfriend or girlfriend, have a business coach, right? Those are all 4 pillars of good life, really. You need to have people in your life that are masters in one area, not necessarily overall mastering all 4, but masters in one area that you're seeking after, and spend your time with those people. These are general principles that I talk about when it comes to experimentation. Just if it's not working after 3 months, cut your losses and move on. That's what I'm right now doing with real estate. There's certain investments that I have, and it sucks. Not all investments are positive, but I have to cut my losses and move on, because sticking with the experiment, even though it's not working, is a much worse fate. So that's one thing that's really important. The other thing I wanted to talk about today is avoiding blue eyeshadow weaves. So look to the masters, the partner, coaches, right? All the people that are important to you, versus beginners wearing blue eyeshadow. Look to those people that have gray hair. There's a saying in the financial industry, right? So being that I work in finance, sometimes also being that I'm a young female in finance, I would tell my clients, I will bring somebody to the conversation that has gray hair in the topic, like that understands this, that can bring some age to it, right? Because at the end of the day, I don't want to just look like a blue eyeshadow weeb. I'm not just a blue eyeshadow numbnut. I'm like, I have more resources at my disposal to share the things that I don't know, and I'm willing to say I don't know certain things. So that's another thing. So don't look for blue eyeshadow people. Look for people with gray hair. Make sure whoever you look to has some experience. You don't want to be the first or last to try something new. So in the business world, we talk about the first adopters. We talk about the first people to do something. Let's say you're the first person to create an online reseller, an online website that sells products like Amazon. The first is usually not the successful one. It's usually the second or the third. And you certainly don't want to be the last to adopt. So being in the middle is the best part. There's a lot less difficulty because the market has already been explored a little bit, but not oversaturated. Don't become the numbnut. You need to become, basically you become a weeb when you trust people too much that don't know anything. Balance doing things yourself and then bringing in experienced people. Hire fast, fire fast. Only masters are remembered. Make your mark on one particular area and focus on the law of 5%. We talk about the 5% weird factor prior to starting the live stream, and that's important. So make sure to only fire people within the 5% weird factor, people that are somewhat reliable. And my questions for today is, what is an example of an unexperienced person that you have trusted in the past? Next question is an example of somebody that you kept giving undeserved chances. Might be a relationship, might be somebody in business, but you kept giving them chances. You got to move on. And then the last, actually I have two more questions. Next question is, what are you going to be doing differently? And then my last question is, how are you going to make your mark finding your niche? We talk about the 18%. We can talk about that more moving forward, but it's in a previous podcast on here. So how are you going to find your niche and alienate the rest of the market, but really do well in that niche? So that's today's Words of Wisdom. Thank you for joining me. I'll see y'all on Monday for the next step in living the good life, which is we're going to talk about if the strongest person is not stronger than 100 weak people against him, do not fight everybody. So we're going to talk about the strongest person. I will talk to you guys later.